this is fantastic. Thank you guys all so much for joining. I was sitting on Sunday trying to figure out the next one of these Best Made Weddings podcasts to do. And we've been doing so much talking lately with vendors. I thought it would be really great to actually talk to some couples and some couples that have gotten married right now and have tried to kind of do everything, the crazy time that we're in and all the regulations and everything else. And so I kind of put out a couple different calls. And Lauren, I saw you had posted in the Seattle wedding group, and then Bri and Cass, we got put together with your photographer, Julia, who I love. And so thank you guys all so much. I know this is a little weird, but you all seem very excited, and you actually all know you all know each other from an online gift registry, which is absolutely fantastic. First off, just Lauren and Kelly, why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us when you got married and where, and then we'll bounce around.
Awesome. Lauren and Kelly, the new Mr. and Mrs. Bolster. We got married on August 8th and out in Easton, Washington. It was a very, very intimate day and super fun. And it was just like, I think it was like a blessing in disguise, having a small intimate wedding. We had planned for, I think, around 200. I think 250 is like what we were expecting 200. And it went to 17. And it was awesome. It was phenomenal. It was like, we made it. I made it what I wanted, all the little pieces, and had a good time.
Yeah, it was a great day. It was perfect.
Awesome. And Bri and Cass, what about you guys?
So we're Bri and Cass, and we're the McTots as of right now. We got married on August 8th as well at Woodinville Lavender. It was a really great day for us as well. We had always kind of wanted a smaller ceremony and elopement, but with myself having the extended family, we decided to go with more of a traditional style. But just like Lauren and Kelly, we were very blessed to actually have a true intimate wedding and be able to just relax and truly hang out with our family for a day.
Awesome. And my wife and I were August 6th a couple years ago, but if it had been, in a different world, we all would have been in the same boat together, with dealing with all this. And I think you guys really get, why we're here today. The biggest thing on the podcast lately that we've been trying to talk about, I started this kind of roundtable format back almost 3 months ago now. Just really trying to focus on the positives and figuring out what we can do right now that's going to be, correct and legal. But there's been lots of talks about, well, we're going to do our real wedding next year, or what is this that we're doing this year? We just had 3 of the top Seattle wedding officiants on 2 weeks ago talking about how to really make your ceremony your own and really get the most that you can out of your day. And then we just did a whole wedding last week with photographers talking about micro weddings and, how awesome that is for photography and special moments. So, and you guys are kind of living it and you've just, kind of gone through everything. Bri and Cass, let's start with you. Just, there's a lot of married couple or soon to be married couples listening to this. What has this whole thing kind of been like for you guys?
We made our decision early on to shrink it to just 10 of our closest family members and then ourselves. And so we had started that conversation in April and then truly made the decision in May. And that for us really saved us a lot of heartache. Down the line, we were able to let folks know right away that this was our plan, just to make sure everyone would be safe. And it was the most manageable. So that way we weren't shrinking the guest list to 30 and then having to shrink the guest list to 15 and then having to make final cuts here and there. We just decided to rip the Band-Aid and say, this is the plan and this is what we need and this is how we're going to do it. And hopefully, luckily, we were able to execute that with the state recommendations and mandates.
Yeah, and the other nice thing is we were just able to get the hard phone calls out of the way and tell people not to book the plane tickets. We didn't have a lot of people traveling, but luckily everyone who had booked tickets, everything was refundable. And it just sort of gave us those 3 months to figure out what we wanted versus going back and forth. I think our venue wanted to go back and was able to go back and forth more. And so he was like, oh, well, we can do 80 again. And we're like, we've done it. Yeah. Because there was a long time where we had a really long engagement and we're like, do we want to just elope on a beach in Mexico? Do we want to go to Vegas? What do we want to do? And we ended up with an 80-person wedding, and we sort of ended up getting what we'd originally talked about, which is just kind of ironic at this point.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think we have about the same timeline. I think it was, I'm a teacher. So when they called schools to close, I was like, nope. All of my family's in the East Coast. So, and they're in New York City. So on top of it, I was like, oh, this isn't good. So we started by doing a 50-person list, and I come from a huge family, kind of like you ladies were saying, that we were getting to a point that it was like, so we can invite this cousin, but they can't bring their wife, like that kind of situation. So I would say a few weeks of that battle and kind of the emotions of that, we finally were like, nope, you know what? Let's go to immediate family only. We're literally not even aunts and uncles, because his family's here. Mine is, like I said, back east. That I was worried my aunts were going to like drive across country, and I was going to be like, don't come. There's nothing for you to do here. We can't even stay in a hotel yet. So we made the call, I would say April.
Yeah, it was early April.
It was April. And then we sent out, because we had sent save the dates around the holidays. And then we resent out like our love story will still be told kind of thing. And it was kind of a blessing in disguise. My brother had a baby right at the start in March. So none of us could see him right away. So it kind of turned out to this like perfect, we all got to spend some super quality time together. My mom, who hadn't yet met her grandchild, we all got that like super quality time. And it was like 5 days. And Kelly got to spend a lot of time with my family, who's from all over, which they all drove into.
I hadn't met.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Some of
met
them.
a couple, but
yeah. So it, like you said, it was kind of like it all worked out to this way that it's perfect. We will try to do a celebration next year. But I'm not, we kind of put all the weight to this one. This was very special to us. And it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And I truly don't think I would change it. Like I said, we set out with this original plan, and it's just what I knew. I didn't even think you could do this. Like it wasn't. And now here I am like, oh my God, everybody has to do this. Like, do this. It's awesome.
100%.
Yeah, no, that's our exact sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's my big question too. Is and obviously there's no right or wrong answer, but even one of my wife's good friends was going to get married in October. They're pushing to next year. They're going to do just family this year. Try to kind of rally the troops next year. Do you guys feel? And we really have not talked about a lot of this ahead of time, right? Which I think is great for kind of organic. But do you feel like you guys are set now? Like if you didn't have to do anything next year, where are you guys both at, Lauren? I see you kind of thinking.
Yeah, if we couldn't, like if there was a mandate a year, 18 months from now, and we couldn't do anything, I'd be like, that's fine, not a big deal. However, I know my family back east is like really jonesing to do something. So we kind of have this idea. We still have our venue because we didn't even use that, and we had paid for it. So we're going to hopefully use that here next spring. So we're going to do a party on the East Coast and the West Coast. So I mean, like if I can get 3 weddings out of it, that'd be sick. But if not, like we're just gonna do, we got our day, so it is what it is from here on out.
Yeah, Kelly's sitting there thinking, I don't know about it.
Yeah, I know. He's like,
no, we did talk about it, and there's a lot of things that we had to make a lot of concessions for to be able to do anything close to what we originally wanted, and that's really what I wanted for her. Is I didn't have as much. In terms of like the fairy tale idea for my wedding, I just knew I wanted the right woman there, really. So seeing her plan everything and then have to go, a step down and then another step down was tough, because it felt like she was missing out on the thing that she, was dreaming about since she was a young girl. So, but she did an amazing job, and I wouldn't trade what we did for anything. It was perfect. And like we said, I hadn't gotten to spend a lot of time with her mother or her brother and their new baby. So it was just that extra little bit of special on top that we wouldn't have gotten with that many people. I wouldn't have been able to see, you get to talk to maybe like 4 people for 12 minutes and that's it.
Bri and Cass, what about you guys? Do you feel like you're set now? Are you going to try to do something next year?
We've definitely communicated to folks that we'll celebrate together soon. We don't know what that truly looks like for us. I think in the long run, if this was it, we'd be perfectly satisfied. And that was our day and it was amazing as is. But I do feel kind of that back and forth of all these folks were very excited and they couldn't come, but they wanted to be there and celebrate with us. And so I wouldn't be opposed to it by any means, but it's not something that we're actively planning, as we're seeing more and more brides coming into 2021 having to already push or already get those nerves. So we have nothing on the books.
Well, and I think the other thing is we have like all of my like bridesmen were from California. And so we've had a lot of conversations with them of like, maybe we just do like a boys trip. Like we go and hang out with my boys and we go to Vegas or something. Cause like we also didn't get to have bachelorette parties. And so it's like sort of do like a celebration with people separately instead of doing like one big thing. Cause I think conversely to like Lauren and Kelly, like our venue, we would have had to pay 50% extra to use next year. So we were either like a use it or lose it type situation for us because we'd already sunk so much money in, and most of everything we'd put down was non-refundable. So this year was like, all right, we're doing whatever we can at our venue with our vendors. Like this is our investment. And so if we were to host something like a celebration, like vow renewal, it'd probably be like at one of our family's properties, like houses, and it'd be something low key where like we like cater or like have like a food truck or something like as like low cost as possible where we can still have fun and just like enjoy ourselves. But like Bri said, like at the end of the day, like our day was perfect and we got to celebrate it with our family. So like if we do end up just like hanging out with people over the next couple of years and sort of doing a later celebration, like 20 different times in like a low key setting, I'm also A-okay with that.
Perfectly fine. Yeah. We keep celebrating.
Yeah. We just keep partying. I'm like, how many reasons can we do this?
Like giving, like as Corona brides, it's like we just have like the next 10 years, like, oh, I didn't get to see you for my wedding. This is my wedding.
Will you wear your dress though for the next ones? Everybody keeps asking me that. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question.
We're getting ours cleaned and not preserved
just in case. And so if we do decide to do more of like a vow renewal, like with more people there, then at least they're clean.
I should probably do that.
It was also loose, and so I was like, well, okay. But I mean,
ours got so dirty.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll tell you that before.
It's like my veil is like it's white to brown. Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
You never see the bottom of the dress in the photos. Where it's just like, just drenched in mud. So there's so many still online all the time now. You know, I'm seeing like September, October, November couples posting. Lauren, I know we're part of the wedding group, and I don't know if you guys are too, the Seattle Wedding Network group, and people are still asking, what do we do? What do we do? Because I've talked about on the podcast before. I remember in April talking to our Memorial Day. One of our weddings and saying, man, like you got this, like we're totally fine, like end of May. And then our wedding that we had, this one on the 15th was going to be like same thing, like 250 people. They were all from Wisconsin coming in. We ended up doing like a live stream because they only had 20 people or whatever. But I remember even talking to her for months and saying, it's fine. And now it really is getting into this, and it's scary for vendors and couples that these, what we thought maybe would have been good in October and November are still really kind of in danger zone. So, if someone's still planning and they're listening to this, I mean, what do you tell them? Just, is it get the Band-Aid off and really try to downsize? I mean, it seems like you guys are both felt way better off kind of downsizing and just like making the best of what you have. Is that, I see Bri and Cass, I see you guys nodding. I mean, what's your advice to people listening?
I mean, I'd say my big thing is just do you and like, do whatever makes you happy and don't sacrifice anything. Like we had a lot of conversations back and forth with family about what made sense, what didn't make sense. Like we are working from home. We've been working from home for over 5 months now. So it's like, we're in our nice, like it's us in our bubble. And so we are doing everything safely. And it's like, all right, we can do this with our families and distance. And we were very comfortable in what we were doing. But I think the one thing is for me, it's like we got really lucky. And so I think so did Lauren Kelly is that. So Jay Inslee came out and said August 6th, no more receptions.
Yeah.
And that was 2 weeks before our wedding. And I think the no reception thing was definitely something that caught our eyes. We were like, all right, well, this is going to affect 2 days before our wedding. How are we going to do that? I think then like 3 days later, it came out like, oh, it's going into effect 12:01 a.m. on the 10th. And we're like, all right, we're getting in right before the deadline. We're turning in that paper like the second before it's due. And I think the one thing that looking forward is for couples getting married in the next couple months, at least in Washington, we don't know how long this is going to go on, is I probably would still do the ceremony and then find a way to do not a reception, but like I think a lot of people are doing like picnics in the park and like finding a way to do something that makes you happy. And it's like if you're super outdoorsy, like go to a like park, go on a hike. Like there's so many ways that you can make your wedding so unique to you as a couple now that isn't traditional, but literally all rules are out the window at this point.
Yeah.
And so I think something we've learned is that like I think the one thing we wish we would have done is just from the get-go be like, what makes us happy? And I think we hit 98% of the marks. But if August 6th was the deadline, I think we would have found a way that was super unique to us to have that reception type feeling and still be able to spend that time with our families while with guidelines. I don't know if,
Yes, all of that.
Yeah, I think I'd say, like you said, do what's going to work for you. We're at a point in our life that the next thing we want is a family. So we're kind of, waiting another year wasn't going to work. If you would have asked me in 10 years, 10 years ago, we might have said like, well, wait, but that's not what we want right now. And I do have a girlfriend who was supposed to get married in April, pushed it to November. And when the no reception thing came out, also comes from a big family, was like, we got to do something. So, and I'm really proud of her because I know it wasn't easy. And they're going to do a ceremony and a family dinner, kind of like you were talking about. And I just think, but that's what's working for her. And this is what worked for us. But if you can do it, I mean, it's worth it. Wear the dress, get dressed up, get the photographer, make it special. Cause we've talked about a vow renewal and things like that. And I felt like I wouldn't have the same energy and emotion that we had this first, on the 8th. There was just no way to recreate that. And I'm really glad that we did that now and not kept thinking like, oh, 2021, so if my advice is do it.
I want you guys both everyone to kind of walk me a little bit through your day and just kind of what it felt like and the emotions. And because we've been doing just a little live stream, just the ceremony kind of things over the last couple weeks. And one of our ones a couple weeks ago, they got married and basically, she just came out, they did the first look super easy. And then it was, I think like 6 people and them, and then the photographer and I. And afterwards she said, oh my gosh, like I felt so less stressed. Like this was awesome. If I would have had 18 people here getting ready and all of this and trying to, maneuver all these different things and go to 18 different locations and all that stuff. Did you guys feel, relaxed on your day? I mean, what was it like getting married? And Lauren, let's start with you guys.
Go ahead.
I don't think there's any less emotion or nerves or anything. It's still your wedding day. So you still have all of those. I'm assuming I've never been married before, but all of the same feelings, and it doesn't matter who isn't there. It's who is there that makes it all the different, right? So for me, I think I had all the normal nerves you would have. So I was pretty nervous.
It was kind of normal in a way because it was my sister, sister-in-law, and one local bridesmaid was there. So I still kind of had that like girl time in the morning of like the getting ready. And we got ready at a rental cabin and then drove over to his parents. And so, I mean, there was still all the angst. Like at one point, I just remember being like getting our hair and makeup done, which I love doing. I felt like we need to be doing something. Come on, people. Like, what are we doing? And I'll never forget getting in the car with my brother, who was the officiant too. So he was kind of nervous, I think, but more just it was his sister's wedding day. Gets on I-90 heading the wrong direction. And I am looking at my phone, like responding to an aunt or something like that. And all of a sudden he goes, I'm sorry, what what exit was it? And everybody in the car, you could hear like the heart because they knew I was gonna like, but he was really cool, made a joke of it. And so there was a lot of emotion, but again, there wasn't this like, I know I'm somebody that like am worried about, are there enough drinks? Is everybody, comfortable? And I didn't have to do that. And I felt like if somebody wasn't comfortable, they were going to go fix it themselves. And I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have to worry about like this amount of guests and is our food hot? Is our drinks cold? And so that was removed because of this. And I felt lucky because of that. I mean, I still had the angst and the emotions but it was a great day.
Yeah, it wasn't any less. Not that it's good to have those emotions, but it is good to kind of know that your pulse is still going. That it means something. Bri and Cass, what about you guys?
Again, to Kelly's sentiment, never been married before, so I'm sure they're supposed to be pretty high. But I mean, we were getting our hair and makeup done, and we had basketball on in the background, and it was just really relaxed, as like excited and nervous as we were. I mean, we just hung out all morning. It was great. And then by the time we got to the venue, that was when the herding cats a little bit started to happen, with making sure family got there and was all situated. And then coordinating the two brides doing first looks was interesting.
Well, and the rain.
Yeah. And then it started to rain as we were getting into first looks. So that was fun. But it was one of those where weather worked out really well for us. The photos were like nice and cloudy, and then the sun came out for a ceremony, which was incredible. And then, I mean, I feel like the main stressors were just around like making sure everyone, like, do you have a drink? Do you have like foods later? And here's the timeline.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was like wishing out a squirt bottle to like make sure people were wearing their masks, or like 6 feet. Like I feel like that was the biggest stressor. It's like, so-and-so doesn't have a mask on. Is it okay? Are we okay with this? But
it really just came down to everyone's an adult. And if you need to put a mask on, you can ask them to put a mask on. So
yeah, but it was like, I feel like super relaxed, like definitely nervous. But then once we were in the flow of things, like we were just hanging out. Like she was like, I got dressed first, and then the first look with my like dad and brother. And then I was just hanging out with my family, waiting for her to put her dress on and like do her thing. And so it's just like, all right, like just hanging out in a dress, like it's fun. And then like, yeah, like after like during our like sort of reception-ish, we're just hanging out and like got to spend time with family, and like didn't have to check in with each and every guest, and
like didn't have to make the rounds. Like we actually were able to sit and eat, which I've heard doesn't happen, but it happened for us. Yeah. So we're happy.
Bonus. We actually got to try dinner.
Yeah. No, our wedding on the one on Saturday, we just had a small, like, it was like an after dinner kind of thing in a restaurant. And yeah, but it was still like the groom still had the steak taken away, like boxed up or something. And I'm like, they still couldn't find time to eat. And not looking to bust anybody, but how was social distancing and masks and all of that for each of you, for both of your guys' weddings? What was that like? Lauren?
Ours was a little different. It was all family, and kind of, we had sent an email. Actually, I think I sent a few emails, kind of like, hey, here are my expectations about, 20 days before the wedding. And I had tie-dyed a bunch of napkins for the wedding for 100 and so many people we were going to have. Well, a friend of mine turned them into masks. So I had masks available for everybody. We did ask the photographer and videographer to wear them. And we said, if anybody wants to wear them, they're here. But we had all been staying in our homes together for the whole week. So we kind of were like, well, you're in, you know what I mean? Like, we're quarantined together. And my mom, she was the only one that flew. And she flew out to us, I guess, like 20 days before the wedding. Yeah. Which, lucky him, spent a lot of time with his mother-in-law.
Lovely lady.
Yes. And so she stayed with us for a while because she was really worried about it. But we felt, again, like you guys had talked about, like we were in a bubble. We're working from home. All of my family's working from home. So we felt pretty comfortable with that. And we didn't have anybody that was older. So it was kind of it was a family thing. And again, we opened it and said, like, please talk to us. And we did say, we did say to my father-in-law, like, he's a big hugger. And I said, be sure to like communicate, like, don't just do it. Like, you gotta be sure if they're ready for it. And some, stood back, and there was some that did it and whatever. So we kind of just like made sure everybody was taken care of too.
Yeah, as someone that's very OCD, the no hand, the whole no handshaking thing is very good for me right now. I'm very
Yeah.
much, I'm very much enjoying that. What about you guys? How is the? You talked a little bit about, jokingly about the mask. Like I said, I mean, not looking to bust anybody, but what did people seem receptive?
They were, and they weren't.
Well, I mean, so we sent an email as well that wasn't as well received by everyone.
Could have been a little bit more gentle, if you will. And so we definitely sent a very strong email.
What did
and
it say? Please tell me. Can we,
Yeah, I gotta hear this.
Just a little bit of the gist of it.
We truly were. We have some. Our photographer was immunocompromised. We have family members who are immune compromised, and so it was. We definitely had more mask wearing because we were two households coming together. We hadn't quite been quarantined together and had that exposure. And so there were plenty of times where we made sure that the aisle was 6 feet apart. We did require masks for some things, and then just tried to be respectful with social distancing while also leaving it up to our families to say, if someone needs to put a mask on and you all are talking, like, you all are adults. So there were times where we did have to ask folks to put on a mask. But I mean, we had originally wanted folks to get tested, and in different counties that the rule, it's not as easy as in King County to just go get a test.
Mhm.
And then there's some wiggle room about testing where it's only good for that time, but if you did anything outside of that. And so there's a lot of unknown, and there's a lot of discrepancies across the board with what is the actual 100% truth, and then what was on a news report or a Facebook article that you read. And so it was definitely navigating through some family opinions and ideas of what's going on. And at the end of the day, I think we did a really great job of making sure everyone was safe. We provided masks in case your mask got a little warm and sweaty and you needed to change. And then as one of our party favors, we did mini hand sanitizers tied with a little ribbon. So it made it easy. Grab a hand sanitizer and go on your merry way. Just stay 6 feet apart and wear a dang mask, please.
Yeah. I should have noted too that most of our family had gotten, because they were driving from Montana, driving from California, and my mom flew from New Hampshire. They had the other ones coming in from California and Montana, they had been tested. Now, mind you, I know that there was a window between the test and the whatever, but at least it kind of gave us all like a sense of just, and my mom had been tested before she even flew. So it was just, those were the kind of the little things that we put into place for the people coming from out of town. And his mother had been tested. And so that was kind of our safety net too. Of course, I don't know why I've been a little bit on pins and needles for like the 14-day window right now, but everybody's, of course I sent a text when we got back and I was like, so we're all good. Everybody's good. And so far it's okay.
It's so hard. And I mean, that's the thing is, I think just doing the best you can. Like I said, our one on Saturday, they did have it was a legal kind of reception thing. I got a little bit of flack for it because, it's like a reception, and we're not supposed to have a reception. I mean, basically they had rented out like a whole section of like a restaurant, and it was like just their family, and it was just everyone was seated and everybody was, whatever. But the amount of care that that they put into it, having the mask on, walking to go cut the cake, that was just their cake that was taken away. Fresh cake was brought out from the kitchen. They had their mask on. I mean, I think no one's ever going to be perfect, but I think the more effort you can make, I just think people feel better. Like, okay, like all this effort's being made, right? Even if obviously everybody's, human, and there's moments where, you got to sneeze or you got to do whatever. But like, I just, that was probably one of the best larger, and it's still within the numbers, but larger, with everyone really trying to cooperate that, I had been a part of, because like I said, most of ours had just been kind of like the 5 or 6 people, but seeing, 30 people actually trying to stay masked was nice to see, you know what I mean? What would you guys say benefits? We talked about more time, being able to mingle and things like that. Other benefits, things maybe that people wouldn't think about that you guys found from having the more intimate ceremony. Brie, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I mean, budget was great because we lowered some costs in some places. And just to be completely honest, it was nice to reallocate some of those funds to cover other things because we didn't have a big catering bill. We were able to reallocate those budgeted things to cover other costs that we had already planned for. And so budget was a huge one for us that we were actually, if we had pushed it, we would end up spending a lot more money than we originally had planned. And so budget, I mean, that we were able to just sit in some Adirondack chairs with a Rainier, just hang out after we were married. And I could not tell you that we would be able to do that if we had another 80 people floating around. And I feel like it was so relaxed, and we weren't on a timetable for the day where it was like, hey, ceremony's around 4. And if that happens at 4:30 or 4:15, that's totally fine. And so for us, we were able to just slow down and really have those moments instead of just pushing through to the next thing and making sure the cake was set up for everything. And we were cutting it at the certain time so that way we could have the lights where they needed to be for photos and sparklers. And there's all of these things that we wanted to still capture for our day, but it just made it so much more smooth to go through each of those special events without panicking that we're running out of time or someone's not in the right spot at the right time. So those are the biggest things for us.
Yeah, well, and it's like one of my like favorite memories of like after the wedding was we had like a little dance floor set up. It's probably like a 10 by 10. And I think you were with your family, and it was me, my brother, and his girlfriend. And we were all like at a different corner of the dance floor, just dancing like idiots. And she came over and joined us. And so there's like us on each corner, like not even planning on socially distancing.
Just for fun.
Just looking like ridiculous. And it's just one of those where like we wouldn't have had that moment with my brother and his girlfriend. Like, and just sort of like letting our hair down, and just, it's on video, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure it's going to be our package, but it was just like one of those where like, we're like, cool, there is space to dance. Like, this would have been packed if we had a huge wedding, even like during like the heat during the summer, like it would have not been able to happen without like it being so small, and just having like these small memories versus if we had everyone were like going in between each group of people and trying to do that. Like, I don't think I would have so many just like distinct memories from that day without looking back at the video or pictures and being like, oh yeah, that happened. Like, I actually am able to recall what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time. I think cost was probably, I think, our favorite thing. I think that was like right off the bat was like,
oh yeah.
I mean, it was, I don't know. I mean, I knew 200 people we knew it was going to be expensive, but then when we started doing 17, I'm like, this is awesome. And we were able to like rent some things that like maybe we couldn't have afforded for, our signature cocktail. We had always wanted to do a Moscow Mule as our signature cocktail. I'm like, there's no way we're doing that for 200 people.
Oh,
but
no.
Then, for 17, we not only did that, but we got everybody like a Moscow Mule. And it just was like,
they got to take home their mugs. We got everybody a Moscow Mule cup.
Yeah. And it was like, it was just like little details that like, I kept saying, I'm like, I could have never done this for, the number I thought. And, so that was really, so like you said, allocating funds to little details that I've always been obsessed with, but I didn't think we could actually do was fantastic. And just, you're right. It just like slowed down. There was a moment in the night we were all sitting around the table. And we had a really long table that had candlesticks all along it. So it felt like it felt like you were in a beach, and we were also out in Easton. So in his family's home is run by solar. So, there's nothing out there. And so just like candle lights and bistro lighting going around, like it it felt surreal. You felt like you were in, I don't know, Italy or something. And we're sitting with our favorite people and drinking cocktails we didn't think we could do.
That sounds perfect, though.
Yeah, I think that the reallocation of the funds, I think, is so, like you said, we all had the steak dinner on it was Saturday, and like, that probably wouldn't have been, you couldn't do a steak dinner at Palisade for, 200 people or whatever it was originally going to be, but for 30 people, it's a little bit more. Because even my wife was like, "Wait, why are you getting all that?" I said, "Well, because they, you figure you're going to, cater 200 people, and then you kind of set that aside, and then, and then you're able to do a lot more with a lot less,
Yeah.
Definitely.
What's been the most challenging this whole time thing for everyone? I mean, I know there's all this stuff with regulations and the changing and stuff. I mean, just for people that are going through the same thing right now that you guys have just gone through. I mean, what's been some challenging stuff that maybe people haven't been thinking about?
I think one of the hardest thing is when you have to decide who's not coming, because it gets personal real quick. I mean, a lot of times you can be like, all right, well, this group of people, it's fine. But then you get down to people like my grandma, her grandma, my dad's brothers. He's very close with all of them. Her mom's got 5 sisters or 4, too. So it just gets tough.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part.
And my maid of honor, who's like my best friend, is in Texas, and her husband, that I think is still something that we're kind of like, oh, God, they work from home. Like, should I have pushed you to come early? And but they were so worried about it, and that's fine. I told, and we'd had a conversation a couple times about it. That was definitely the biggest challenge. And 2 other of my bridesmaids too had just had babies, or one was pregnant, and so I called them right away, and I was like, first of all, I don't want you to come. Like, I don't want you to feel this pressure. I don't want you to. And those conversations were challenging. I didn't really feel it with my family, because I was like, they're going to support me. They love us. They're excited. But it was the really close ones, that, I mean, like, still talking about it is still a little hard, because and as she feels that way too. She's like, God, I don't know. She's like, was I a wimp? Should I have worn something? Should I have done, like, should we have driven? I don't know. But we're going to celebrate at some point. And it's like you had said, this little bachelor party that you'll do at some point. We'll do that. We're going to do a girls' trip. And I never got the bachelorette party we had planned. And it's going to work out. But that's the challenge, is having to make sacrifices on relationships, personal relationships.
Yeah, it still seems super raw to you guys, even now.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
No, yeah. I mean, even for us, it was one of those where I had to call I have family coming from all sides. And it was one of those where I had to call one of my grandmas and let her know that she wasn't invited. And she was just like, are you sure? Like, I can be there. Like, I'll sit in the parking lot. And I'd say the family aspect and the close personal relationships that you have, those are the absolute hardest. Because, I mean, when you have a wedding, you want everyone to be there. Everyone and everyone's best friend. Let's all have a party and just be merry and do this. Mm-hmm. And I think it was really hard going from your plan A and then having to shrink it to something no one wanted. But like we said, everything ended up being perfect. And so I don't regret it. But even our officiant, who was also our hairdresser and a friend of mine from college, who was going to be a kind of a like multiple trick pony here. And that was the wrong one. My bad. But she had flown out for a funeral in Texas for a family member. And when she came back, she tested positive. And she was like, don't worry, like 10-day period, 3-day rest period, and then it'll be fine. And I said, well, those 13 days add up to the day of. So, and I mean, it was one of those where, like you said, it still feels kind of raw, and we want to talk about it. And she texted us on our 1 week and was like, how are y'all doing? How's everything? And it still doesn't feel great, but like you said, it's all of those other small celebrations that we do get to have that not everyone gets to have. Usually it's a bachelorette and a shower, and that's it. And we're fortunate where we do get to stretch it out as much as we want to, because as much as it sucked, it was really great. And now we just get to keep making really cool memories that no one else really gets to have.
Obviously, no regrets, but if things, looking back even now, what is it, a week and a half since, things that for other people that are going to be going through it now, that, things you wish you had done, or advice, for, hey, make sure you think about doing that, or, we did this and we thought that was good. Any advice that way?
I'd say look out for what is going to protect you and like your heart. And like, you said, calling family, and I don't have any regrets, but I do think making those calls is tough. Reaching out to people. I mean, Brie and I obviously met in these Facebook groups, and that was kind of the support we were finding. Cause I was like, I was kind of feeling really, I was having a hard time dealing with it. Cause I'm like, there's a lot going on in this world, but I'm blessed enough to have a party, but yet I'm very sad. So how do I manage that? And how do we kind of manage that? And I think finding support groups and finding other women and other men that are going through this too, because at one point I was a mess one day because I thought I couldn't get my hair and makeup done for my wedding. And I love doing that. And I was totally distraught. And then later I was like, oh my gosh, why am I distraught about this? And I was very lucky to have a partner and a mom and aunts that were like, it's your wedding. Like, this is it. You're okay. It's okay to cry about this. And I think it's allowing people to cry, allowing people to experience the emotions that are going to come with this. And knowing that there's other couples out there going through it too. And knowing that people aren't alone. I think that's like the biggest advice I would give people is knowing that it's okay to cry about hair and makeup. It's okay to cry that these people can't be there, or it's not the dance party that you expected, but go through those emotions, but know at the end of it, it's going to be awesome. Like it's going to be awesome when you get there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like the support groups, I think I was part of like 10 different Facebook groups. It was just like kind of got a little overwhelming at times, but also knowing when it's okay to leave one of them when they become toxic. Cause it's like, I don't know if you're on like the Betches Brides one, but there's some where it's like, I'm in Kentucky and I'm having a 300 person indoor wedding and I'm not allowing masks. Yeah. And like in August, like beginning of August. And I was like, you are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like, and there were so many times where people were like, well, I don't care if they don't trust, like if they watch the news and believe in this virus, then like they don't have to come to my wedding. And I was like, are we living in the same world? Like, is this like, what's happening here? Like, am I getting punked? And Brie actually had to leave some of those groups because it was just like post after post after post. And it's like, we're just trying to have like a 10-person wedding here. And like, we're second guessing if we think it's okay. Yeah. So like, not only seeking out that support, but like acknowledging that like different parts of the country believe in very different things and have very different regulations. And it's like, I feel like, I mean, your family's on the East Coast, like, I'm assuming they're in like the Northeast where things are sort of similar with viewpoints. And so like New York got hit super hard and people there understand, like people in Seattle, California understand. But like seeing a lot of like the Midwest being like, or like even Florida, like I saw someone being like, oh, well, like one of my bridesmaids was sick and then the bride and the groom got sick and like ended up being like 30 people out of like a 200 person indoor wedding. And I was like, this is exactly what we're trying to avoid. And there was like, and so staying away from the cattiness of it, because we're all emotional and we're all have very different viewpoints. And I think going back to like sticking your ground and like doing what's best for you, but also just sort of letting others sort of like live in their own world and just like not getting sucked too far into these support groups and just getting out of it what you want to.
Like some of them are definitely more for entertainment, in my opinion.
It's
one of those where find your support and then continue to make those hard decisions, or make them early, rip the Band-Aid. And then that way you can just kind of move forward with your plan instead of having a plan B or a plan like C, D, E, and just narrow it down to what you're really looking for and the moments that are important to you. Like for us, it was, we were really wanting father-daughter dance. That was something we were both had to have. And so what did we need to do to have those things? And basing our decisions and what we were going to do around what we had to have, instead of, do I need to have Sally's best friend's like cousin come, and will that make me happy? So it's those pros and cons, and it's hard.
And I think the other thing is stick to your decisions. Cause like I had a best friend that was still going to fly up here that week. She already had her ticket. So she was going to go visit her sister in Bellingham. And Brie kept being like, well, she can just come. And I was like, no, we already had like the 1.5 hour long FaceTime discussion. Like we've already ripped that Band-Aid off. And I was like, we're doing immediate family. Like, I don't want to then be like, have one friend and then go back and forth. And I was like, I'm very happy that we made a decision and stuck to it and didn't, like, we had some second guessing from time to time, but I'm glad we never reverted back on anything, because it just made our lives that much easier. Like, we never had to work on a seating chart. Like, there's a lot of things. Yeah. We did go back and forth. We made decisions. We talked to our vendors about them and then moved on. Like, we didn't, once we thought about the decision, we moved on with it. And we're like, all right, this is set in stone. And I think that saved us a lot of heartache.
Yeah, because you're always going to second guess, right? I mean, that's tough to, I mean, still, even afterward, right? I mean, now even, almost 2 weeks later, you're still like, well, gosh, should we have done, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard. It's human, to not, to worry about that. Yeah, it's just the biggest thing, like I said before on the podcast, is like you guys said, trying to make the best of what you can do and not dwelling on what we can't do, because nobody, right? Like, nobody can do it right now. I mean, it's like it sucks for everything's lost. Everyone's lost something, and so yeah, just trying to make the best of what we can do, because I think like everyone's in the same like sinking kind of boat right now, and so we're just trying to.
And we don't know when we can do it too. Sorry.
Well, the other thing is, the other way to look at it is we're making history, right? No one has had to do this before, but we did it. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing is, like, we don't know. I mean, like, we can be as super stoked for 2021 or whatever, wherever you want it, like January, February, March. We just don't know. And I think living in the unknown was causing more stress than just, like you said, ripping the Band-Aid. I think there was a good couple of weeks there that I was living in this, like, do we go 50, 75? What is the number? I was making up numbers based on random things I was seeing on these phases being developed. And that anxiety was not healthy. Like, that was not a healthy spot to be in. And once you get there, and like once you choose, like, go with it, because it is hard. And you kind of, and like from these Facebook groups, you do read a lot about these women and men making choices, and they're like, like, oh, okay, well, we finally decided to either postpone or downsize. And they're all like, the relief I felt. I'm like, yes, it's huge. It's huge. And I do, like the not having receptions right now, man, I mean, that is, and defining receptions. I mean, what vendors are having to go through, all of you guys, like, my heart goes out to you, because there is so much gray area that is trying to figure that out. And feel pretty lucky we were on 8/8.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I've been a Jay supporter the whole time, except for the kind of the date thing. And because we had gotten I had the call from our bride that morning at like 10 that morning saying, hey, we're canceling it. And then like 3 that afternoon, the tweet came out or whatever. And I was like, wow, like this, because she canceled it, 5 hours before. I was like, wow, this is, it's very real. Those
were a rough 5 hours. Tell you what.
Oh, big time.
When it was insane, we emailed our venue and we're like, hey, so like we're watching Jay and Z right now, and we like didn't hear back from him, because that's yeah. It's like, okay, so this is bad. And then the next morning he's like, oh, sorry, I was driving back from Idaho, and he's like, oh, I can see what happened. And I was like, all right, thank God. Okay, cool. I thought this was bad news.
And the panic.
That's actually one great extra question before we go. Is how are your vendors with communicating? I've talked. My stance is I have communicated all the time with everything about everything, because I'd rather know that we're canceling or moving or postponing. But I know a lot of vendors have really been worried, right? Like, well, what if I email them and then they'll remember that like we're still booked, and then what are we going to do if they want to cancel? Or I don't know what they're thinking, right? But they don't want to.
Yeah.
How are your guys' vendors with communication and everything and moving stuff around?
Ours were easy. Well, because we had moved, I think the only big thing we had was the venue, and they were awesome, because at first I was like, oh my gosh, are we about to lose so much money? We can't, like, I don't like paying for parking. Like, so I'm like, I was so terrified about losing that money. And they were so awesome. They were like, moving it to May, that's fine. Who knows if we're going to be able to have it. But everybody else we still continue to work with. Our caterer, we, had paid a deposit, and our deposit ended up covering the 17 people. And florist, everybody else was just, we continued. The only thing is because everything was supposed to be in Snohomish. So our day of coordinator picked up everything that day and drove it out to Easton. So she was honestly just a friend of the family, and picked up the food, picked up all the florals, and drove it all the way from Snohomish out to Easton. And it all worked out. I will say the hardest thing we did was we rented a U-Haul truck to get the rental. Yeah, it was a and to get the rentals, because we were going to get married at Dairyland, and I really loved the barn tables. Like, I was obsessed with it, and I was having a hard time parting with it. But we found them, and we rented them. We got a U-Haul and drove them all the way over there. And it was very extra. I recognize that, but it was everything I wanted it to be. And so that was probably like the logistics of it. But we stuck with all the same vendors, and it was pretty sweet.
What about you guys? I mean, and I guess even more back to you, like, you appreciate, I just want to get, like, you appreciate people being communicative and getting in touch with you.
Yeah.
Guys,
oh
right?
Yeah. And I'm sorry. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I think right after the Inslee thing, the florist had texted and asked, are you guys still on? And I was like, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm about to break the law, but yeah, we're doing it. Like, I don't know. So I was like, yes. And I'm like, is that okay? And because I knew there was this whole thing of like, can we even give them the flowers? Can we give them the food? And so I immediately, kind of shot an email out to everybody, and I got a few emails back, and they gave it a few days though. And I was kind of thankful for that, because I think we were all trying to figure out what it all meant. And but yeah, their communication was phenomenal, and I was super thankful.
What about you guys?
Yeah, same for us. Everyone was just kind of checking in, and if they hadn't heard from us, but they had heard from Jay, they would send us a quick email and just say, we're good, still going.
Well, and I think like after Jay's thing, we were all kind of like, all right, we still in touch. Like, we're not canceling yet. Cause like everything was so like very much a Jay supporter, but like everything was so wishy-washy. Like every time something comes out, it's like, even with the phases, it's like, there's always a couple-day grace period before I know something's going to be finalized. And so it was one of those where we're like, we put the feelers out and we're like, hey, so we were watching the press release. Hey, so how do we feel about this? Okay, we're going to touch base in a couple days. Great. But it's like we really at least monthly we're in touch with our vendors. Like the only one we didn't end up going with was DJ, because we were like, all right, I can't justify spending $1,500 for like queuing 3 songs on a playlist.
And that was the big bummer for us, because we really wanted the DJ for the movement of the folks and the ambiance that you can't make with a Spotify playlist. Like, it just doesn't have the same effect. And so that was one where it was a hard one to let go, but we just couldn't justify it for the 10 people hanging out. And so that was the hardest one to let go. We really liked the guy we were going to work with. And so, but kind of backtracking here, it was really nice to have that communication, and that the vendors were thinking about you and thinking about how we're going to do this. And sometimes it was nice not to be the first person and to be the panicked bride saying, hey, I think we're going to do this still, but what are your thoughts? And with catering, how is that going to work? Are we still going to do this? So
yeah. And I think the other thing that helps is like, we never planned on postponing. I mean, our venue did have an additional charge to postpone, but it was never like, I mean, I guess on the opposite side, we're not planning on starting a family anytime soon. We have there's no legal changes that really happens for us. Like, we're just now married, but we're like, okay, we've been waiting 2 years to get married. Like, why would we postpone? We wanted our families there anyway. So like, we'll figure everything else out down the line. So we were open with our vendors from the get-go that like, hey, we're still doing this in August as long as we're legally allowed to. So like, it's going to be less people, but like, we're still on board if you guys are. And so we had a pretty open, and I think that probably sort of eased like catering, photo, video, like all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we placed our floral order in July. So we were like, when the stuff came out from Jay, we're like, all right, we're getting $1,500 worth of flowers. And even if we're not allowed to have a reception, she can just set up the arch for our ceremony. And then we also have,
and then everyone gets flowers to go
and
home.
everyone gets a bed.
To go flowers.
But you make it work. And so that extra communication, especially while we're having a wedding and we're grateful to have a wedding during a pandemic, it's that extra communication when you can get it was really appreciated.
And also to just like communicate, like, okay, so we're going to have less people there. These are all the extra things we're hoping to get in like the photo set, like in our videos. Like these are the moments we're now adding on, or like we had like 2 hours to take photos and family photos. And so we just sort of like did whatever we wanted and like let Julia, like, she's like, all right, we're going to go over here now. And we're like, cool, that sounds great. We just had that time without being like, okay, every time. But we were able to communicate with her all summer about like, oh, these are the people in like my family. These are the people in Brie's family. And just, I don't know. I think we probably had more open communication than we would have without the pandemic, which probably would have been helpful regardless of the pandemic or not. Just super communicate, which probably, I guess, when you have 3 weddings a weekend might not be the best as a vendor, but we very much appreciated it.
Yeah, it's definitely been, more communication, but that's not always a bad thing. You know what I mean? Is we got to really know the couples this year, right? Like all the vendors that are working really got to know everybody. Well, thank you guys so much for just honest, feedback and stories and feelings and stuff. I really appreciate it. I think, this just be really helpful. Like I said, we've talked with a ton of vendors, and I think we need to talk with couples too about what's going on. And I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time, just kind of at the spur of a whim, to hop on here and do this. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else before we go? Any final thoughts?
No.
Do it.
Do it.
Awesome. Well, this is normally the time that we plug all the vendor websites and everything, but obviously we don't have to worry about that. So thank you guys so much. If you're a couple vendor that's listening, if you have questions, you can go to www.bestmadevideos.com/survey, and I have all vendor types by category. And if you have any questions, and we do these roundtables every week trying to figure out different stuff. And it's been a lot of COVID talk right now, obviously, but hopefully eventually we'll move past that. And I just appreciate it again, you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.